Good morning, Professor Gadgil.
Hello, good morning, Priya.
Hi.
So
Pretty
what's
late
the...
for you.
No, not at all. I work late.
Okay.
I work late. So
Okay.
it is just fine.
Okay, great.
Morning would have been much harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess some people like to get up at 5. I like to go to bed at 3. So you start 10 minutes after the hour. Is that how it works?
We start as soon as we have enough. I mean, 9:30 is the time, and we'll start in a few minutes as soon as we have enough.
No, I see. Okay.
As soon as we have enough people.
Professor Gadgil,
Okay. And then I would like to show slides. So you'll make me a co-host, I guess, right?
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Easy.
So I think a few other professors are here. Anand is here.
Hi, how are you?
yeah, namaste. The class got
Namaste. Good to see
over
you.
just now, and then I think the first year students will also be here.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
I see Professor Date is here. Professor Bakul
Wow.
Rao is here. Yeah.
Namaskar, Dati Sahib.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Professor Agnihotri had to travel today, so probably he may not be able to join.
Oh, I understand. Yeah. He's a very busy guy, I know.
But I mean, this is a record time that he has been on campus for the last 6 months.
Of course, it's lockdown.
Hello, Professor Gadgil. This is Bakul.
Hello, Mukul.
Yeah. So we started working with the team already.
Wonderful. You had a call at 7:30 or something like that, no? 8 o'clock, something like that.
Yes.
I hope it went well.
Yes, it did go.
And
It
they're
did go
working
well.
with you for the first time. So,
Yeah.
So I think that the TAs have made you the co-host, Professor Gadgil, so you can.
okay. All right. So, I need to see. Oh, I'm a co-host already. Good.
Yes.
Here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Great. So tell me when to start and we can get rolling. Okay.
So it is not in PowerPoint mode though. Yeah, now it is.
Yeah. I do.
So these days we are hearing a lot about the wildfires in California.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. We have 100 million dead trees in
100
California
million.
as a result of an unprecedented 6-year drought.
Okay.
And we don't know what to do with 100 million dead trees standing.
Okay.
So nature is taking its own solution by burning the forest down as with lightning or with short circuit with power lines or whatever excuse nature finds to ignite such a vast amount of standing dry biomass.
It's really
And
sad.
we have seen nothing of it. So we should be seeing long-term, decade scale fires in California during the fire season now. We have begun to call it a fire season.
But
And-
sorry.
No, go on.
Are the dead trees like a new? I mean, is that like a buildup, or is that like a steady, or is it just the temperatures which are increasing these fires?
No, we had a 6-year drought.
Oh, the drought created. Okay. Yeah, you said
So
so. Okay.
severe drought made the ground so dry.
Yeah. Okay.
Many tree species could not take that
Okay.
much drought and they died.
Okay.
Only trees like the junipers have survived. So some foresters are saying that this is the time for a long-term permanent transition of California forests from uh, deciduous forest to scrubland, dry scrubland. And the historical record shows that the last century was the wettest century in the last 1,000 years for California. So the kind of forests that grew are not typical of long-term California history.
I see.
Uh,
In some
Yes,
sense, climate change is like reinforcing the loop. I mean, it is like the forests are burned, so more CO2 is also generated, and then
oh yeah, of
is
course.
worsening the whole cycle of climate.
Totally. That certainly is. The state had some plans to figure out how to do biomass to power conversion plants that are portable, so you can drag them.
At least utilize the biomass.
Yeah, I know, but
Okay.
it's very difficult because multiple things have happened at the same time. We have the COVID crisis. We have a major setback economically, much like India does. In addition to the COVID, in addition to climate change effects, all these things have come upon us at the same time.
Yeah.
Should we start?
Yeah, Priya.
Yeah, we can start. I think
Okay,
we
so,
should start. So I think Abhinu and Sudha probably have like an intro. Do you want to do that?
I think that's a good idea. I should stop sharing the screen and you guys can take over. Yeah.
Sudha, Abhinu, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sitara Seminar Series. Today we have with us Dr. Ashok Gadgil. Dr. Gadgil holds concurrent appointment on the UC Berkeley campus as Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering and at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory as Faculty Senior Scientist. At UC Berkeley, Dr. Gadgil is a distinguished chair professor of Safe Water and Sanitation in CEE. He's the PI and Faculty Director of Development Impact Lab and of the Clean Energy Research Center for Water Energy Technologies. At LBNL, Dr. Gadgil is a senior faculty scientist in the energy technologies area. He has a PhD in physics from University of California, Berkeley. His expertise ranges from computational fluid dynamics of indoor air and pollutant flows, simulation of entry and transport of indoor radon, building energy efficiency, and methods to treat drinking water to make it potable. He has more than 105 referred archival journal papers, 150 conference papers, and several patents. On behalf of Sitara, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here. I will go back to sharing the screen. And I want to start by saying Sitara has been there for a very long time and has gained great stature for their commitment and long-term efforts and production of graduate students that have gone on to contribute to the development sector in India and abroad. So it gives me great pleasure to be here and speak about this, since this is a kind of topic that I really love to work on myself. Two caveats. One is I have only about 30 slides or 35 slides, so we have plenty of time for discussion. Feel free to just unmute and interrupt me in case I'm not being clear. But if we have long questions or questions that require long answers, let us leave it to the end. That is first. Secondly, I want to say up front that even though I'm giving the talk, this is a 15-year effort that I'm summarizing in 35 minutes. And it has contributions from about 250 individuals and about 20 different institutions. So when I say, in any case, by mistake, if I say I, it always means we And if I say mine, it means ours, and so on. Okay. So here we go. As I want to express my grateful thanks for financial support. Without money and without financial support from generous donors, things don't really move forward. Back to our main topics. The World Bank defines absolute poor as the bottom quarter, 3/4 billion people that earn less than about $1.90 in purchasing power parity in 2015. By just a brief side note for those of you who don't know PPP, purchasing power parity is exchange rate corrected for differential in prices. So a haircut in India might cost maybe 200 rupees, which will be close to $3 in the US, but I can't get a haircut here in $3. My haircut here minimum will be $20. So that's the correction for that, corrected across all goods and services. Weighted correction is purchasing power parity. So where are these absolutely poor people? Where do they live? Only 5 countries account for 50% of these globally absolute poor, according to the World Bank. This is where they live. The top country in the list of 5 is India, accounting for 24% of the global poor. About half of the 50%, 24%, live in India, followed by these other 4 countries. And the big picture takeaway is what does it take for inventing, testing, developing, and maturing truly new technologies for the often desperate life and death problems of these absolutely poor people, a lot of whom live in our own country, India. And I don't mean spillover technologies about which everybody likes to beat the drum, like cell phones and solar photovoltaics, which are what I would call trickle down from the top tier, economically the top tier, or even iris biometrics, which was not invented for the poor, though we use it for the poor now for biometrics and ID in India for Aadhaar. So I argue that there are very few new technology inventions that take root for solving the often life and death problems of the very poor. Most of technology development takes place for the richest, the wealthiest countries, and among the wealthiest countries, the richest people who have the power of money. And here I summarize a case study, our own experience, and share with you what we learned in developing a technology that is not aimed at the wealthy or the wealthy in India or wealthy in the US. The history goes back to massive distribution of hand pumps for drinking water in Bangladesh and India in the 1980s. 10 million hand pumps were established in Bangladesh alone. And the signs of arsenicosis started appearing in early 1990s. The photographs show lots of people, at least in 3 panels, people are showing the palms of their hands, because one of the earliest signs of arsenicosis is ulceration and hyperkeratosis, that means thickening of the skin and black spots on the skin of palms and bottom of one's feet. And you see a little girl showing her hands as well. The 2 men in the top panel have lost parts of their hands to gangrene and amputation. At the bottom panel, the guy on the left has lost his hand. The team I work with followed this village over years. He lost his first hand. Then the gangrenes required amputation of his arm, and then eventually he developed internal cancers, but he lost his life basically. And so on. So there are a lot of really sorry stories, including social rejection of women who develop signs of arsenicosis on their skin, like the woman in the bottom panel who's come to the village until she dies because her family rejected her. Access to safe drinking water is recognized as a fundamental human right by the UN. There is a resolution passed back in 2010. Is also prominent Sustainable Development Goal 6. And yet tens of millions, maybe 120 million people in India alone have to drink groundwater laced with arsenic, and maybe under 70, 80 million in Bangladesh. Arsenic is, of course, distributed in Earth's crust, but is not uniformly distributed. And the worst hotspot is Bangladesh and nearby states of India. Chronic exposure leads to lots of horrible physical ailments, as well as to low IQ development in children. In 2000, WHO called it the largest mass poisoning in recorded history. That's a citation for that WHO bulletin. And 30 years after 1990, now it is 2020, our people are still drinking that water. They don't have a choice. So we started, let's take a diversion. Let's look at only internal cancers and see what's the predictive models say based on very good data. And the question we are asking is, there are some internal cancers that can be expected from drinking carcinogen-bearing water over a lifetime at the allowed maximum contaminant level, MCL, of a carcinogen. So if one drinks otherwise very safe water, and even with only a single carcinogen at its MCL for a whole lifetime, among 100,000 people, you could ask, how many excess internal cancers develop? Here is the result of cancer models, verified and backed up with data, saying that the most toxic, oh, by the way, I should say this particular graph excludes arsenic, okay? So you won't find it here yet. The most toxic of the carcinogens allowed in water is ethylene dibromide at its MCL. That's why I call it most toxic, in the sense that it causes most cancers at its MCL, 12, maybe 12.5 excess cancers. Now, if we add arsenic to this graph, this is what happens. Watch the vertical axis. Arsenic risk, which was earlier at about 13 or 12 and a half, is now negligible. Right there near the bottom of the x-axis, you see ethylene dibromide. Arsenic at its MCL, 10 parts per billion, gives rise to about 720 excess cancers per 100,000, which is 0.7 per 100 or 7 per 1,000, right? So that's how bad arsenic is at its MCL compared to all other carcinogens at their MCL. Okay, that is at 10 ppb. That's the risk concentration allowed by US EPA and recommended by WHO. But we measured, and you know lots of people who have measured arsenic concentrations that are much, much, much higher. And the internal cancer risk does not taper off. It rises linearly with arsenic concentrations at these values. Arsenic concentrations of 250 ppb are very common in arsenic-infested parts of, say, West Bengal. These photographs show various arsenic removal units from the district of Murshidabad, photographed by a PhD student, at that time a PhD student, 2012, by he's a student of economics, applied economics, and his job was to determine what is the survival rate of these technologies. How long do they continue to deliver safe drinking water after they are placed and after they start functioning, after they are commissioned. Within 1 year, 95% of them failed. And you can look up Abhijit Das' PhD dissertation from Jadavpur University. It's clear that we need a sustainable technology system. And these were just installed often with charitable trusts and NGOs and donations from CSR funds. But they remained useful maybe for sometimes storing straw, like this top panel shows, or tying goats or cow, like this bottom panel shows. In fact, it turns out none of the technologies were bad, in the sense that all of them would work in the lab just fine. It is not that the technologies had failed. What had failed were the institutions which had not looked beyond checking the box of system installed, move on. That happens often, but it suggests that it happens because nobody cares beyond checking the box. They don't care, maybe they care enough for checking the box. They don't care enough for having a result, for assessing if people are getting safe water. Okay, so the systems were unsustainable, financially not viable. They often had media that came with them, and then the local village couldn't afford to replace the media. Or sometimes they were without societal institutional incentives, or no structures, organized invisible societal structures to keep them maintained or repaired, without people understanding what they were doing and why they were doing it. Sorry, is there a question? No, I heard some speaking, but I couldn't catch it. So I'll assume there.
I don't think there's a question.
Okay, thank you. So I'm jumping to a solution that we started exploring in 2005. For short of any other name, we just call it ecar, which is an acronym for electrochemical arsenic remediation. You stick 2 electrodes in water, steel, ordinary steel plates. You apply a low voltage across them, low DC voltage across them. The anode dissolves. It's called anodic dissolution. At the cathode, you get hydrogen evolution. You see the bubbles going up. Anodic dissolution releases Fe2, which interacts with dissolved oxygen, produces insoluble Fe3 oxyhydroxides, or called HFOs. At the same time, is a Fenton-like reaction. So it creates very potent intermediate oxidants, which also oxidize arsenic-3 to arsenic-5, which then binds to the HFO. At the same time, phosphates, silicates, as well as arsenic-5, they all bind to the HFO. HFO coagulates, settles out, leaving clear arsenic safe water in a process which is a zero liquid discharge process, which means there is no liquid discharge. It's a big coveted term, ZLD or ZLD, meaning no water molecules are wasted. Only damp sludge comes out from one side, and arsenic safe water comes out to be used for drinking. So back in 2006, we were experimenting with 200 milliliter glass beaker. By 2010, we had gone to a 100-liter unit that you see in that white 100-liter cylindrical tank, with my then PhD student working next to it in Amirabad, which is a town in Murshidabad district, which is next to Bangladesh border. From there, we designed a 600-liter unit, which we designed in Berkeley, but built it entirely in India. And my then PhD student, Caroline Delaire, is in the left panel with a local engineer from IIT Kharagpur, whom we hired, who was as a field engineer. And this lab on the left panel is in Jadavpur University, who are our partners, both in environmental engineering and in applied economics and applied sociology. Middle panel shows the same device now moved to a schoolroom, tested in Dabdapi High School, which is 2 hours away from Kolkata. And now the right-hand side panel shows 2 tanks of 1,400 liters each, so 2,800 liters total, installed at Dabdapi High School and commissioned. So that's the progression of just the physical scale of the technology. In parallel, there was fundamental science research and lots of journal papers published. And in parallel, as the right-hand side panel shows, education and outreach with meetings with school teachers in Dabdapi and with students and with headmaster and with the committee that oversees the operation of the school and the community. So the schematic, the flow schematic is that starts with a groundwater pump, then it goes through ecar, you see those plates, goes through a flocculation chamber, a tube settler, then the standard treatment, tube settler, rapid sand filter, micron filters, the big blue ones, UV treatment, and then automated electronic water distribution system. So these are the 2 reactors. Here's a top view of one of the reactors showing the iron plates, which are interdigited plates. Alternate plates form anode, alternate plates form cathode. They are interdigited. They're about 1 square meter each. There are 16 of them in each tank, and there are 2 such tanks. Here is a team, the plant designed for 10,000 liters per day. The cost of consumables alone, that is cost of electricity, alum, the consumed iron, that's it. We have only 3 consumables. Consumables cost 1/20th of 1 cent per liter. And in front, you see the students and operators, and in the back, you see faculty members and senior most PhD student wearing the black t-shirt, Abhishek Roy. This is how ecar performance looks, starting with 250 parts per billion, which is the inlet concentration. The resulting concentration on the average is less than 3 parts per billion over a long period from about beginning of April of 2016 all the way to 30th of January 2017. These are samples that we flew out to Berkeley, and we measured them with ICP-MS. We also measured them with a local NABL lab, and they came out in agreement, but we are just showing you the data that we analyze ourselves after calibrating our ICP-MS with standardized samples every single time before and after the measurements, the usual stuff. In fall of 2016, we started distributing the water to students. All students got an electronic card. An electronic card reader is in that white kiosk with a blue roof. And each card is read and delivers 1 liter of water per student per day, arsenic safe drinking water. On January 31, 2017, we handed the big plant off to the industrial licensee Lipure with all the manuals. There is an operating manual, there is a maintenance manual, there is an engineering manual that Berkeley prepared. The lady standing there with us is Professor Jayashree Roy. a professor of economics, and the two gentlemen on the left are senior staff from this for-profit company called Lipure. After that time, Lipure has been operating the plant. They have been testing the water once a month, posting the results on the outside of the plant every month and sending me copies. And the plant continues to perform well. Here is what has happened. The lifetime cancer risk for drinking water with arsenic of 250 ppb is 18 in excess internal cancers per 100 people. With the ecar plant, we deliver water at 3 ppb, well below the MCL of 10, and lifetime risk is reduced by 80-fold. Everybody at the school, students, teachers, and staff, gets free water, 1 liter per person per day. There are 2,500 students at the school and 400 count for staff plus teachers. And about 4,000 to 5,000 liters of water is sold to the community around the school for 6 rupees for 10 liters. So that would be really 10, not even 10 cents, 8 cents for 10 liters. I approximated that all the way down to 1 cent per liter, but it's actually less than that. And the lifetime risk goes down to 80-fold, and the risk of gangrenes and amputations and so on also, of course, is reduced substantially. So what's the big picture takeaway for inventing, testing, developing, and maturing truly new technologies for the bottom 50 people? And why there are so few new technologies here that take root? So I hypothesize, my colleagues and I, 2 major disconnects. First is that most engineers are left clueless in their formal education about the world outside of their deep and narrow discipline. So they're good for going to the boiler room or going to the basement and just putting their head down and do what they are told. They cannot even speak with other disciplines. They don't even know what they don't know. That is called not knowing the geography of your ignorance. And that's kind of humorous way to say that, a long time ago when Europeans were discovering the world, they used to have these very crude maps, very funny now, historically looking back, very crude maps. But they knew roughly where there was land and where there were oceans, and they systematically explored them. And they conquered the world, and they colonized vast tracts of land, or they even slaughtered the natives and owned them, like what happened in North America. But if you don't know your geography of your ignorance, then you have no clue, right? And the second is that there is inadequate appreciation of the transition of what it takes to take something from the lab all the way to make it scalable and successful. So here is our representation. You've probably seen all of you have seen some version of the top purple arrows going from ideas all the way to scale up. The lower graph shows what the cash flow looks like. And the cash flow, the cash flow is, though is in arbitrary units, you could assume that the units are roughly log scale. So when you are looking to the lowest point on the cash flow in the critical effort zone, that space really is, this part is about 10 times worse than somewhere here. So you need really a lot of money to do the large prototype or a demonstration one first time to make sure it works and is financially viable. And then it takes off and presumably the commercial entity makes a lot of money. So to cross that critical zone, which is our lessons learned, apart from finding funding, building a high trust team, having a learning mindset. That means always be aware that you could be making mistakes and keep on searching for them. At the same time, feel safe about taking risks because you take only calculated risks. Apart from those, here are the 4 key things that we believe were critically important. For this particular technology, we designed a community scale technology, and it's a practical economic decision. The economic opportunity for community members to be employed was really important for them. Bridging the knowledge divide means that the community begins to understand through teachers, through school children, through community meetings, what it is that the technology is doing and why is it needed. And then ensuring compliance with all local regulations so we don't take any shortcuts relative to what the local government or the state expects. This panel of slides basically just shows what the electronic card looks like in panel A. Over here, what this young girl is showing in panel B, what her card proudly says in Bengali, let us protect our family, and so on. This is the kiosk that you saw already, and you again see it here, where this side is reserved for girls and that side is reserved for boys, according to the social expectations from the school. And the whole thing seems to be working very well. I'll just have 3 more slides to show my group's current and recent technology research. First is something called air diffusion cathode assisted iron EC or ASAI. So this thing here is a special kind of cathode. It's made out of a felt cloth that allows oxygen from the air to penetrate. But because the felt is coated with a hydrophobic material, it will not let the water from inside come out. So it is holding the water back, allowing the oxygen to come in, injecting that with electrons, which turns that oxygen to combine with water and produces H2O2. So at the anode, you still have Fe going into Fe2+. At the cathode, you have electron injection and oxygen plus H plus turning into H2O2. H2O2 reacts 10,000 times faster than dissolved oxygen in oxidizing Fe2 into Fe3. And these intermediate oxidants, Fe4 and OH dot, still form, which still oxidize arsenic-3 to arsenic-5. Kinetics is fast. The Faradaic efficiency of H2O2 production is about 80%. Here is what happens. This is old-fashioned ecar, okay? This is what we got. And if you inject electricity very slowly, which is the black squares, okay? First of all, back off and think, remember that initial arsenic is a humongous 1500 ppb. And if you inject 0.5 milliamps per square centimeter, which is down here, you are able to bring 1500 all the way down to less than 200 in trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. But that takes a long time. So you want to jack up the rate from 0.5 to 10 and 10 to 100. And if you do that, then essentially the exit water ends up having several hundred ppb of arsenic. So your arsenic removal has failed because you were impatient with injecting too much current too quickly. Now I repeat the same experiment with ASAI. Note the y-axis is now different. This scale is now going from just 0 to 10, okay? So that scale is now amplified here. The same 3 injection rates, 0.5, 10, and 100, 0.5, 10, and 100. Both cases, we still inject 300 coulombs per liter, which is same as about 90 milligrams of iron per liter. To do that, this takes 94 minutes. This also takes 94 minutes. But when you do it with ecar, you don't get good clean water. But when you do the same thing with ASAI, you get really clean water with less than 1 ppb arsenic. And even if you inject it 200 times faster, which means you finish the job in 2.5 minutes, you still get water at about 3 ppb. So ASI is going to give you something that ecar simply can't. In other words, here is another way to say, if our dose was 600 liters a minute, coulombs per liter, sorry, then iron EC will take 3 hours to do a job, to go from here to there. But with ASI, I can do it in 30 seconds, which allows me humongously faster flow rate for a given compact size. Oops. The compact size is about this size. It is in the center panel. It is like having about 2 or 3 laptops stacked on top of each other. This is experimental results with 130 ppb going down all the way to maybe 5 ppb at 50 coulombs per liter. And we want to stack these, and then we'll get water at about 600 liters per hour very quickly for something about the size of a filing cabinet, a small filing cabinet, rather than these large plants which we have running at Dabdabi. So I'll stop here. So we have time for questions and discussion. I want to thank you. The lab, my group's lab is gadgillab.berkeley.edu. My email address is ajgadgil@berkeley.edu. Thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing, and we can take questions or comments, and I'll do what I can to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'll take the questions now.
Sure.
Anand?
Yeah, hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi, sir. Thanks a lot for this wonderful session, sir. Yeah, I have a question with respect to this ecar that you are explaining. So in this ecar, you are explaining that how the arsenic removal is being done. And then you said that the arsenic will be formed and stored as a sludge. So how this sludge will be removed and how this will be then taken care of, sir?
Very good question. Arsenic atoms cannot disappear. We got to deal with them, right? So they are bound chemically to HFO, and HFO is insoluble. So we add a flocculant and we settle it out. We add a non-ferrous alum. It creates a flock. A lot of it settles out. Some of it still remains in suspension. So we run it through a tube settler. And the tube settler delivers water at about maybe 1 NTU in the phallometric turbidity units. And then we run it through a very fine filter to ensure that no particulate matter escapes into the final polished water. Plus there is a stage of UV disinfection that I showed earlier, right, in the treatment train. The sludge itself, of course, contains arsenic, but it passes TCLP, or toxic chemical leachate protocol. And folks at JU have been investigating how to embed it in concrete blocks by putting that sludge to replace sand in concrete up to 60%. They find the strength of the concrete, compressive strength and shear strength increases. So you can embed it in concrete. And then if you grind up that concrete later, the ground up concrete also passes TCLP. So it's a safe place to keep it. And you can actually replace some of the sand and put it into structural concrete. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Sure. There is a doctoral dissertation from Tara Clancy from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, that you'll find on the web. She has also done that research. And people from Jadavpur University have also published their research as well on embedding arsenic sludge in concrete. So there are at least 2 publications or many more coming out now on how to do this.
Richa, your question, please.
So I have two questions. First one is this arsenic sludge. How much it is harmful to the environment if it is exposed on the surface openly? One, and second is how do you approach to a problem like how you reach to the place where there is some problem? It is due to groundwater problem, like people were having some distortions and problems in their health and maybe body structure. So how did you reach that? First of all, how did you approach these people, and then how it came to the mind that this might be reason, and how you dealt with the problem, how you reached to the problem?
So two different questions. First one is easy to answer relatively quickly. Arsenic sludge is by itself not harmful because it does not get released into the environment if it is bound to iron. But of course, you don't want to eat some child to go and eat it, right? So it's best to keep it away from children. I wouldn't want it to be eaten or show up in food in any which way. So that is the purpose of embedding it, is to just do it that way. Currently, what is done is because India doesn't have rules of how to deal with the sludge, we have a contract. I shouldn't say we, the Jadavpur University has a contract with a hazardous chemical disposal company in West Bengal called Ramki, RAMKI, that will collect the sludge and take it away in Haldia hazardous chemical disposal facility. But the production of sludge is very, very small. Per person per year, we produce about 250 grams of sludge. So Ramki says, it's not worthwhile for us to come and collect it all the time. We'll just come once a year or so. And the cost of collection is folded into the cost of water that is delivered and sold. Second question is very important, which is about problem discovery. Am I correct? You are asking me, how does one discover a problem? What problem to attack? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So we start with putting some screens, my group and I. We start by putting some screens on what problem to attack. First screen is that problem worth solving? And if solved, will it improve the lives of at least 10 million people eventually, if it goes to scale? If at least 10 million people are not bothered, if that problem is not bothering at least 10 million people, we let it go. Because we call it a boutique problem. We call it a very specialized boutique problem that people who play only in the sandbox should bother with. But we should try to attack problems which are really big, which must be bothering and somehow causing hardship to at least 10 million people. So if we are successful, we will have a big success. That's the whole idea. First screen, right? Second screen, we ask, what is the state of the art? Can we improve on the state of the art? What are people doing? What alternatives do they have? And does the solution appear feasible? Is it within our range? Are we able to do something so much cheaper or so much better or so much faster than the current state of the art that our intervention is truly going to improve the lives of these people in a way that is economically sustainable and viable? If we can't do it, we back off. So one of the very early screens is economic viability. Everybody can solve a problem if you are allowing indefinite amount of money and time and do a gold-plated solution. But people cannot afford a gold-plated solution, which means we are not leaving our square one. But if you want to go to scale, that is already in our head right from the start, which means we are never going to use indium or iridium or platinum electrodes, right? We're always going to use stuff that is available at a low cost and use energy that is very low, marginally small energy, but use very high science. That's okay. Science is different. Science is like information. Science is free. once you grasp it. But materials and energy are expensive. So there is a lot of searching going on in parallel with our current projects as to what is the next project we want to attack, where we have these problems which meet our screens, where we will not be wasting our time doing something so narrow and boutique that we'll be playing in the sandbox. That's not worth our time. Or we won't be doing something that is so expensive that it will publish a journal paper, but so what? Anybody can publish a journal paper. How many people want to change the world, right? So that should be the screen at least that is what I teach my students. Saying be very tough on yourself on what you can do and just wait and search and search. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Ankush, your question, please.
Namaskar, sir. I would like to first add to the Recha's point of when I worked with, to make you aware, just I had worked with Sam for the UC Berkeley Cookstove project.
Ah, you did, okay.
I also got the same question when I met her because, how come Sam came to India and have her PhD on cookstove, because she has not saw the cookstove maybe from childhood, and we people who has gone in, and thank you for making us aware about such few problems of our own regions. As I am from, like, my question, coming to the question, I'm from Gadchiroli, and we used to be like totally dependent on groundwater for drinking and domestic purposes. But is it a natural process that arsenic is generating, or it is an industrial or agriculture practices which make the water arsenic? And what is the percentage maybe? Or else it is being depend on geography, whether no, it has been more in West Bengal and not in Gadchiroli maybe, or how you?
Questions are very good, Ankush. It is not of industrial origin, it's natural, first of all, okay? Even though arsenic is spread all around the Earth's crust, more or less, under certain conditions, arsenic gets released into the aquifers. It gets so-called mobilized from its bound state. And there's a whole lot of literature on under what geologic conditions arsenic gets released into the aquifers. Most of those tend to be in the Gangetic plain, Indo-Gangetic plain, all the way Jharkhand and West Bengal and Bihar and UP and of course Bangladesh and Assam. Those are reducing conditions. So reducing conditions are achieved when you have sometimes biological matter that goes into the top aquifer and into the soil. Maybe because of agricultural pumping, the groundwater level fluctuates and the rainwater brings biological matter into the top aquifer. And the bacteria then use arsenic-3 and they reduce it to use the arsenic-5 that is bound, reduce it to arsenic-3, which becomes mobilized into the aquifers. But it is also found in Punjab, both Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab, that oxidizing environments under high pH will also mobilize arsenic. So that is too complex for me to follow beyond this, what my summary I gave you, but the literature exists in terms of why it gets mobilized. Origin of arsenic in India and Bangladesh is the Himalaya. It is arsenic-bearing rocks whose wearing with the rivers and the rainfall and the snow and the glacier has caused arsenic-bearing silt to be deposited in the plains of North India over 100,000 years. And it is those silts which are arsenic-bearing, and now they're releasing their arsenic in the aquifers. Yeah?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Professor.
Sure.
Rohit, your question.
Sir.
Yes, Rohit.
Hello. Okay, sir. Sir, as you mentioned, one of the major scope of your technology is its scalability. when I
One of the major requirements. Yeah, that was the kind of screen before we want to take it on. Yeah.
yeah, while looking into the technology, what I have seen is actually it requires some consumables like iron plates are required. Also, it consumes some energy. So I have seen the previous that abundant technologies, the photographs of the PhD student. So it shows like most of the locations don't have electricity and those kind of facilities. Also, other thing is actually
I didn't understand your last sentence. You said you have seen photograph. Of course, we use electricity, but I didn't understand the follow-on last sentence, please.
actually the abundant, some kind of abundant filters photographs you have shown in the beginning of the slide, the arsenic in some part of the village.
Yes.
They are putting cows and all those photographs.
Yeah.
Those locations seems like it's not kind of like that school. They don't have that much of facilities.
Possibly, it's possible that they put up places in filters where they don't have electricity, but that is the site selection is also a constraint, no? So our scale is community scale, much like you don't have a school inside every house, you have a community scale school, right? But you do have household level kitchens. So some activities will be community scale, some activities will be household scale. We determined early on that household scale arsenic remediation is impractical or uneconomic.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So we have a common question in the chat box that who is currently doing the operation and maintenance of this technology currently? Or is it transferred to any other university?
Fair question. The licensee of the technology is an Indian company based in Gurgaon, with their head office in Gurgaon, but they're all over India, apparently. The name of the company is Live Pure, Livpure. They are, I think, one of the major in the top 3 players of under sink RO systems for middle-class Indian urban households. They are the licensee of the technology, and they are the ones who are operating it, making a profit of about 1 lakh rupees per month, and they are maintaining it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
That is the whole point. It's not our job as a university or as researchers to be operating, then we'll be stuck with our hand under the stone all the time, right? We want to go on and do the next thing, and we want to let it grow on its own, which means it should make a profit for somebody to be interested in operating it and continue to build more of those, right?
Yes, sir. Another question, sir, that we have is that what should be the changes that should be brought in the education system to further sensitize the engineers?
Oh boy, that's a very good question. We need changes in multiple ways. For example, engineers are really trained to be problem solvers in a very narrow sense. The word engineer comes not because of engines. The word engineer is way older than the word engine. It comes from the word ingenious. It comes from the word ingenuity. Engineers are those people who are ingenious, and with ingenuity, they solve problems that other people can't. Okay? So if you only make the use of all these talented, ingenious people to solve problems which are framed in really small, tiny, cute boxes with boundary conditions which are so small that they make a cheaper toothpaste or they make a better paintbrush, then that is what they will be limited to doing. We should be able to address that 1% or maybe 0.5% of the engineering students who want to do something beyond the next toothpaste or the next paintbrush. We don't give that opportunity at all. We just train them to be just like a train can only run on the tracks. That's how we train engineers. Run on the tracks on which you are hired. Don't ask, don't look up, you know? And that is a problem around the world. Even in the US, for example, we don't train our engineers to think about sustainability other than some lip service. They don't know what sustainability development goals are. They often don't know what are limits to growth. They don't know that indefinite growth in material consumption will be catastrophic for all mankind. Nobody tells them that. It's not on the agenda. They just want to make the next app. So limitation is not, of course, just in India, it's everywhere and needs to be broken.
Thank you, sir. Can we have Ankur's question now?
Hello, sir. This is Ankur here. Sir, my question is related to the engineer's point that you raised. So I agree that we have been put down into silos, or our education has been very narrow. But even this experience of yours shows that to develop a solution, you require certain expertise to develop something that will be useful and scalable. So how do we break those silos? So is it possible for me to go into other fields and develop these solutions when I have been narrowed down so much?
Yes and no, in the sense that
it's 10 o'clock.
Sorry about my computer, it's just telling me the time. Yes and no, in the sense that as an engineer, I was trained as a physicist. All my degrees are in physics, okay? And I was very dissatisfied with doing mainstream physics because it wouldn't change the world within my lifetime. So I became an engineer, or slowly drifted into engineering. And all the time I have to be learning, and all the time I have to recognize that there are people in my adjacent department, in economics, in business, in sociology, in behavioral psychology, who know a hell of a lot more than I know, but I know things that they don't know. So I got to figure out how I work with them and find like-minded people, and then we are able to solve problems together. That's what I found was very productive. One was the learning attitude. One was team building with trust from people outside of my own field, and always wanting to take calculated risk. And one of the greatest things of being in a university environment or IIT environment is that you can take calculated risk. It's not like all or nothing like it is outside world, right? In the outside world, you have to risk your own bank account or pocketbook or whatever else. Here you have the whole IIT behind you if you want to take a calculated risk, which is what one of my students was doing when she came to IIT Bombay to work on cook stoves in Maharashtra. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I think we have one last question, which is there any issue related to lead in India like that in US? And is there any affordable technology that we've developed to deal with the problem if it exists?
Oh boy, one of the serious problems is that almost no developing country measures lead levels at the tap. It is not a surprise that if you measured lead levels at the municipal water treatment plant or in the Tansa Lake, there's no lead, not a big deal. The challenge is to measure and publish results about whether there is lead at the faucet, at the tap, right? There are lead pipes in old buildings for sure, wherever there are old buildings, because old buildings essentially were copies of European old buildings. So one of my students who is from Chile, Santiago, old city, he went and measured lead levels in the faucets, in the taps, in old apartment buildings in Santiago, Chile, and he found, sure, high levels, well beyond the allowed levels. But nobody publicizes them, nobody measures them. Western Europe has a lot of lead, again, old buildings. US does, and I suspect so will old buildings in Mumbai. But you have to measure them, right? Yeah, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have another question from Rohit. Rohit?
Hi, sir. Actually, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rohit.
Okay, sir. Sir, I'm from Kerala. Actually, in Kerala, actually, we have problems in groundwater with the E. coli contamination.
Oh.
So what happening there is the public water department have provided community level reverse osmosis plants.
Okay.
So everyone can go and collect enough water free of cost.
Okay.
Also, the panchayats having those kind of kiosks. They are using treated water in those kiosks and providing for people. So actually, what do you think about the institutionalization of your technology? Because it will more, we can expand its reach.
Okay. It's not really my technology anymore in the sense that I am like anybody else, employee of the university. So anything I invent is owned by my university, University of California in this case. And they're happy to license it to anybody who wants. It's not just Lipure who has a license. It is a non-exclusive license. So anybody can get a license by approaching the University of California, point one. It surely should be done. I'm puzzled by your beginning remark that RO is used for E. coli, which is a way overkill. It's like bringing a big howitzer gun to kill some cockroaches. E. coli can be killed very easily with UV light, as you might know, without having to boil the water, without having to go through all the RO. RO is primarily useful if you want to reject dissolved salts, right? If you want to reduce the level of total dissolved solids, TDS, then RO is really good. But if otherwise water is fine other than E. coli or fecal contamination, all you need is UV light and it's perfectly good to drink.
Okay.
We don't have any more questions, sir. Thank you for giving us your valuable time and such an informative session. I would like to ask A.B. Rao, sir, our HOD, to say a few words.
It was nice to hear you, Professor Gadgil, as always. Recently, I had also seen your lecture that was available on YouTube, the link that you had shared. And
Right.
incidentally, Professor Joyshi Roy also gave a talk to our students in summer while she was in
wonderful.
Bangkok, and Professor Narendra Shah, our colleague, was in touch with her. He was spending the semester there, and then she could talk. And then she also mentioned and talked about this project about arsenic removal. And so we got two different sides of the story, one from the engineer and one from the economist. That was nice to hear and corroborate the facts. So thank you so much again for your time and encouraging our students. So I know this is like end of the day for you there. So thanks.
Yes, I know.
We really
But it's a
appreciate
pleasure for me to connect to IIT Bombay. There is a very long history. I'm from Bombay originally myself. As a National Science Talent Scholar, I spent some time in the physics department of IIT Bombay, long time ago.
Okay, nice. So we look forward to your physical visit whenever it is possible, and
I look forward to that as well. And currently we have some kind of collaboration developing with Dr. Bakul Rao.
Yes, I'm aware. Yeah.
We'll see where that goes. Look forward to that too.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Gadgil.
Yeah.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
All the best. Have a good day.
You too. Good night.